Hi, I'm Brad Thomas with Vaughn Dalzell and Eric Froton, and this is the live college football betting Q&A, but for Black Friday. That means we're going to go over all of the Black Friday games to answer your questions. I want to start this off nice and simple. Vaughn, what is the favorite dish you had for your Thanksgiving spread?
I had the most un-American Thanksgiving possible. I went to a hot pot and a hookah bar afterwards. So if you're
Okay.
asking me what my favorite hot part of the hot pot meal was, I had tofu for the first time. I gotta say, tofu is absolutely fire. Go get you
Okay.
some. So that was my favorite Thanksgiving meal. How about you, Eric?
Well, I'm a turkey guy. I'm pretty, meat and potatoes, as they say. Nothing extravagant like a hookah bar or anything like that in my Thursday night. But yeah, I had plenty of turkey. I also love, I'll get the biscuits whenever I can get
Of
my
course.
hands on them, and obviously an incredible egg bowl that never lacks for drama. Thank you,
Never.
Lane Kiffin, and your salvo that you fired at that reporter who said he was leaving today. We'll see if he's going. I personally think he's gone, especially after the way that game played out at the end. But you got to say, like, man, that Jackson Dart fumbling that snap, or not the snap, but okay. Mississippi State is their identity is the air raid. That's what they do. Okay, you know what they're going to do. On the 1 yard line, they get in and the game is over. They kick a field goal and essentially the game is over. It's a 2-score game. And you run an RPO with your air raid quarterback who barely ever does them, and he keeps it. And then the ball gets, obviously stripped on the 1 yard line, and here we are. So, like, all you have to do is be careful there. Obviously, Ole Miss comes down, they score. The 2-point conversion, they got to get it in order to tie the game. And I thought the play call was excellent because you see Mingo coming across the formation and then diving in right in the middle for that quick little pitch, drop back up, scoot it up. But number 5 on Mississippi State, I don't know his name, but he was awesome. On that play, he goes, sheds his blocker, keeps his gap integrity. You see him break down, and he notices exactly where it's going, and he just gets his hand out and gets just a piece of it and literally saves the game for Mississippi State. So another egg bowl, probably the last one we'll see out of Lane Kiffin. So he's going to be catching those Auburn checks. But, yeah, great Thanksgiving all around.
Listen, my favorite dish, I actually went to a Thanksgiving buffet at the Celeste Hotel by UCF. It was probably the most expansive buffet I've ever been to. Like, there were cheeses from all across the world, desserts from all across the world. My favorite dish, man, it had to have been the salmon. I love me some fish. I definitely did do ham, turkey, salmon. I didn't do any dressing or stuffing this time because I wanted to, like, fully protein out and get as much of the proteins I had in my system. But either way, it was still really good. And it was tight because someone was serving me the whole time. I just kept saying, come on, waiter, I need another mimosa. I need another mimosa. But listen, we have a power-packed next 2 days of college football. Let's get things started with number 19, Tulane, taking on number 24, Cincinnati. Cincinnati is a 1-point favorite, and the total is set at 46. Go ahead and start us off with this, Vaughn.
Well, we actually just saw Tulane flip to the favorite in this game
Wow.
within the last 30 minutes. So we're seeing money coming in on the green wave, which I think is the right direction in this game. Now, Cincinnati has won 32 straight home games. I mean, that's as a UCF guy, Brad, you know what it's like to have a great home team. All right, the Bearcats are usually a play on at home, but you see the Sharps making the move on Tulane now, and Tulane might seem like a team of destiny in the AAC. I mean, they have lost 4 straight against Cincinnati. Now they come out as the favorite, opening up as a 2.5-point dog. And you look at both these defenses, they're top 25 overall. Tulane is one of the best against the spread teams in the country right now. I did grab Tulane +1 yesterday. I like them at the pick'em price. I think they are the team that's going to win this game. And I said all along, I think UCF could be the team to win this conference, but there's going to be a sleeper, and it won't be Cincinnati. The sleeper has been the Tulane Green Wave. They have the offense and defense to win this game.
I wonder if anybody put money on Tulane to win the conference, because I did a little sprinkle on UCF to win the conference. Somehow, some way, we're playing in the conference championship game as everything goes right. Could be a rematch versus Tulane. Eric, did you see any props that kind of caught your eye here?
Yeah, this game is really interesting. And the reason why we've seen this late movement is because the quarterback for Cincinnati, Ben Bryant, transfer from Eastern Michigan in the offseason, broke his foot or has a severe foot injury, was seen in a boot after the game last week, and has now been officially ruled out.
Let's go.
So that is why we're seeing the line cross from +1 over to the minus side for Tulane. And I mean, look, it's logical. You're going to have Evan Prater come in, who is one of the highest recruits in the history of Cincinnati. He was a 4-star recruit and obviously went over there with Luke Fickell to be the eventual quarterback. But hey, look, you're bringing in the heir apparent now, cold, where Bryant started all year. You're expecting Evan Prater to come in against an excellent Tulane defense, ranks 24th against the pass. 38th in terms of suppressing explosive plays. And you have a Cincinnati offense that, I mean, as everybody's seen, they haven't been able to run the ball this year. Okay.
Yeah.
They are really not the Cincinnati power run defense oriented team we saw last year. And they lost a lot from defense. They lost 8 starters, so the way that has sort of manifested itself is Cincinnati is ranked 107th rushing. I mean, that seems absolutely inconceivable. And, it's like they've flipped 107th rushing, 31st passing. Well, guess what? Now you don't have Ben Bryant, the steady, reliable hand that they'd had up until this point. I'm backing Evan Prater, the new quarterback. He has been listed on FanDuel, not listed on DraftKings.
Okay.
Because they've kind of laid off on him. You want to take his under 192.5 passing yards, in my opinion. We've already seen their wide receivers numbers get pulled. So you can't even go and do that in terms of a spray the board type play here with Tulane. So we have to kind of rest on the quarterback there. That's where I think the edge is right now. We've also seen on the Tulane side, Tyjae Spears is 97.5 rushing yards. Obviously, we saw him. He's been incredible. Past 5 games, he's gone over 100 yards in each of the past 5. Yeah. Obviously, there's a little bit of concern here because we are playing Cincinnati, and for their faults on offense, they're still a stout defensive team. So I'm going to stay away with that on Spears. And then the other 2 guys, you got Watts and you had Deuce Watts and Shea Wyatt at 44.5 and 44. They've kind of been trick or treat each of these past 2. Watts gets a lot of deep passes. Shea Wyatt is a little bit more of the intermediate receiver. I do feel a little more comfortable. I bet Watts last week, expecting him to catch the deep passes, and he burned me. I am taking the under on him. I'm switching sides here, so I'm going to recommend Deuce Watts under 44.5 as well.
Deuce Watts under 44.5. Yep, he's still sitting there on my end too. I might take that. Yeah, so this game was confusing to me. It's one of those games where a lot of people aren't going to do their homework on, right? They're going to see Cincinnati and their dominant home record and just auto bet it. But I do think Tulane is the right side here. I didn't put an official play out on this because before Ben Bryant finally got ruled out, is when I talked about this early in the week, and I was leading Cincinnati depending on the extent of his injury, which probably isn't always smart, trying to back a banged up quarterback. But let's move on to the game I'm actually really excited about. Baylor at Texas. Texas is a 9-point favorite. Total set at 56. Bijan Robinson's last game in Austin. I'm going to start with Baylor, but then I want to kick it to you, Eric, because I need to get your opinion on Bijan Robinson's rushing total. But first, let me give you my thoughts on Baylor. I'm on Baylor with the line's at +9. I think if you guys wait till like 11:50, you might get a 9.5 in there. A lot of money's coming on Texas, which is totally understandable. But for me, this Baylor side has proven time and time again that they can slow down the run. What they did with Kendre Miller in that entire TCU game, they slowed down the run, held them under to 55 yards, and really made Max Duggan try to beat them through the air. Yes, they lost the game, but they had like a 75% post-game win expectancy. I know Eric loves the post-game win expectancy because that really tells the caliber of the game and what's going on throughout it. If you turn Quinn Ewers into the guy who has to beat you, I think this is where Baylor finds their advantage because Quinn Ewers has struggled. He's looked like a Greek god, and he's looked like a guy who'd be better off mopping floors instead of playing quarterback. So for me, I think they'll be able to do enough to – it's hard to contain Bijan Robinson, but I'm going to say neutralize Bijan Robinson. And that gives me an edge. I just think there's too many points. But Baylor hasn't beat Texas in Austin since 2014. So I'm not going to sprinkle the money line here, but I do think 9 points is just too much. Eric, tell me about your prop and what you think about Bijan Robinson in this game.
Sure. In terms of the game in general, between Baylor and Texas, Baylor, what they want to do is they want to run the ball if at all possible. Like, this is a pretty efficient team. 23rd in rushing offense, 47th in terms of passing. Blake Shapen is a credible quarterback. He has his moments. He will cause turnovers. But in terms of, his consistency, he's been over 200 yards in 6 of the last 8 games. So that does give me a little bit of a lean when it comes to his passing line. He's currently at 204.5. On FanDuel, he's 206.5, I believe, is where he has been ending up on DraftKings. When it comes to, Baylor on defense, look, they're not quite as great when it comes to their passing defense as you'd expect. All right, 62nd in pass D, 66 in EPA per play. When it comes to them playing complete games, they've had a problem with that this season. 77% win expectancy. Take a drink, like you said, Brad. Last week against TCU. 61% win expectancy against West Virginia. A team they handled nicely. They should be able to close out those games. They've had a real hard time doing so. Texas, 18th in offense. We know what they can do. They're an incredible running team. Defensively, too, they stop the run. All right, you forget they're 9th against the run in defense, and you think Texas, and you don't think about obviously the past 3 years where they've been a horrific tackling team, but they've really straightened that out this year. In terms of offensively, 21st in offensive success rate, 24th in defensive success rate. So this is a pretty balanced team who, like Baylor, we've seen them have good games, and they've blown them. They've just simply blew their game against Alabama.
Yeah.
In honestly spectacular fashion. And then against Oklahoma State, how do you this Oklahoma State team, that loss is looking even worse after they've been terrible the past 3 weeks after winning that game. So in terms of what I like for this game, obviously Bijan is at 129.5 on FanDuel. That is an aggressive line against a really good Baylor front seven. I think it's probably the best. It's them or Iowa State, in my opinion, in the Big 12. It's a big line. This is the best running back in college football. This is the number one running back who will be taken in next year's NFL draft. I am a firm believer in Bijan Robinson. He's incredible. I don't feel comfortable taking an under on Bijan, even though they're playing against a very credible Baylor front seven. So he's a 129.5. While I am not backing the under, it's a no play for me. I just feel like it's probably priced right on the money.
Okay.
However, I do like a couple of Baylor plays here. One in particular, Craig Squirrel Williams. Love the nickname. He's gone over 100 in 2 of the past 3 games, right? But the one he didn't, he only got 5 carries for 20 yards due to game script. And the way that Miranda has been running that backfield is you got Richard Reese, who's a sensational freshman who's coming in. He's getting at least 10 carries a game. He's gone over 50 yards these the past 2 games. Craig Williams has, like I said, 2 of the past 3. But Williams is 5'8", 165 pounds. As discussed, Texas has the 9th best run defense in the country. They'll be keen on it and trying to make Blake Shapen beat them, in my opinion. I like Craig Squirrel Williams under 80.5 rushing yards on DraftKings. He's currently listed at 75.5 on FanDuel, so you want to take that 5 yards of line value with the same sort of grip. And lastly, my favorite play for the game, Ben Sims, tight end, Baylor. He is currently listed at 28.5 receiving yards on FanDuel. He's at 25.5 on DraftKings. In the past 6 games, right, starting from last game, TCU, 1 of 2 targets for 4 yards. Kansas State, 2 of 2 for 13. Oklahoma, 1 of 2 for 6. Kansas, he caught 3 of 4 for 36. But then West Virginia, week 7, 2 of 5 for 18. So early in the season, he was getting at least 5 targets per game, all right, in each of the first 6 games.
Yeah.
Since then, in the last 4 games, he has gotten exactly 2 targets in each game, and we've seen his, route share go down. All these factors that we're looking at are involved. Say we have to take the under on Ben Sims. 28.5 rushing yards on FanDuel.
I like it. Under receiving, 25.5 for me there. As for the total, so you guys know how I feel about totals. I think the best people at totals are computers. I have the computer projection here actually for this. It just disappeared. The computer projection has it at 56.5. So that's probably a no play for me. I just think that Baylor can get into those lower scoring games. I just don't want to touch that there. But I do like Baylor, and Eric likes his 2 props there. And I'll probably sprinkle a little bit on Shape and Vaughn. Do you have any thoughts on this game?
I mean, I think it's going to be a very good competitive game. I mean, you guys hit on everything there is to say about it. I felt the exact same way about Bijan Robinson. I'd love to play the over in probably his last home game. But, I love my Baylor Bears, so I'll stay off of this game. I'd rather watch this one than bet this one.
Yeah, it's a great point too, Brad. You made a great point about the unders. Baylor is obviously known for their unders. That's how they run the team. That's what they want to do, of course. Yeah. But what's interesting is even though Texas, Baylor is 4-7 on the under, right?
Yeah.
Total. But Texas, in their last 15 home games, is actually 11-4 to the under.
Yeah.
Right. So obviously, being at home, last game, couple of teams with game scripts that, or at least approaches that are pretty slow in terms of their pacing. Not a bad look, Brad.
Yeah, I said that in the the TCU game. So I was totally confident in playing the under there. Let's move over to Arizona State at Arizona. Arizona 4-point favorite. Total set at 65.5. I think there's an obvious prop play that we have to play in this, but Vaughn, I want to get your thoughts if you have any on this game.
I think I know which prop you're going with, and I have a feeling Eric's also on this guy due to a text I got a couple days ago. But this is a very interesting game. These are 2 teams that have been like bottom dwellers pretty much for most of the season. I find it very interesting that we see Arizona laying 4 here, given that they lost 5 straight to Arizona State. But when you look at this probably is more of an Arizona spot. But the bet that I like is the over 65.5, actually. It's hit 3 straight when Arizona is the home favorite in the series, which is interesting in my opinion. But when you look at these 2 defenses, I mean, there's nothing much to like. We're talking about 103rd, 125th in total yards. The scoring defenses are both 100th or worse. The other team is playing for bowl eligibility, so they're basically playing to just upset the other one. Yeah. Arizona State, looking for the road victory to end their season. Arizona looking for a home victory to end the season. So while I think Arizona is the team that wins this game, I'd rather play the over 65.5 up to 66.5. I think we're going to see plenty of points in this game, and neither team be shy when they get to the red zone or on 4th down.
I like it,
brother. Amen. I'm right there with you in terms of, especially when you're discussing these defenses. Both of them are objectively, amongst, I would say, the 10 worst in the Power 5. You have Arizona ranked 128th in terms of overall team performance, a 3rd worst in the country, 4th worst, excuse me. And they're ranked 126 against the run. And then you go over there to Arizona State, and it isn't much better. 113th ranked overall defense, 124th against the run. So, I think your instincts when it comes to the flow of this game are right on the money. Also, it's not just that, though. Like Arizona State, they ranked dead last defensively in success rate allowed. Yeah. Boy, that's not where you want to be. But that being said, obviously, preseason, I was really high on Arizona coming in because they were absolutely dreadful for the past 2 years, thanks to pretty much Kevin Sumlin whittling down that program before he left, and Jed Fish comes in and takes over. Only his 2nd year this year. They won 1 game last year, but they come out, and this is, the 2nd year turnaround. He got everything in place, and now he's doing well. And while their defense is a work in progress, their offense has been legit. And my prop, and this is where I'm kind of going with this, Jaden DeLora. Okay, this has been an odyssey, this line this week, and I want to give you a full life cycle of how this has transpired. So JDL, FanDuel has been leading, on the props front. We've seen them not just props, but on the games. They're the ones who've been leading on lines all year long. On Sundays, even Saturday nights, if it's a game that gets done early, they're hanging lines on Saturday nights, and you're seeing massive line movements up and down. And that's been consistent, too, in the player props market. The example we'll be using here is Jaden DeLora. Okay, so this opened up on Tuesday at 235.5 passing yardage. As Vaughn can attest, I immediately got on the phone to anybody who would listen to me in any state that has any sort of legal gambling, I was on the horn immediately for that 235.5 line. Got it down, put it down, signed, sealed, delivered. That has since moved to, at present time on FanDuel, it's at 282.5. So that has been a 47-yard move on the Jaden DeLaura. I don't know what was going on with 235.5 because he's beat 300 6 of the last 8. Okay. Yeah. And that's why we saw DraftKings, when they finally hung it yesterday, come out with a 298.5 line where it is currently still at. This is fucking insane. I'm sorry. Geez, I think it's the first time that I've sworn all year on this. This is flagrant. It is shameful. Whoever put that at 235.5, collect your belongings in said box and be escorted to the nearest exit. We still have line value here. It's still a 282.5 on FanDuel. Yeah. It's a 298.5 on DraftKings. Get that over now at 282.5. That's my play of Friday.
You know what I'm going to actually probably do? I'm going to probably play his original line and parlay that with Zach Charbonnet rushing over 100. I think that's actually a pretty good play for me.
Oh, Johnny Manziel gif. Oh, Johnny Manziel.
Wow. I'm checking right now to see the odds before we move on to the next game. Zach Charbonnet. Are the odds good?
Vaughn, can we get a little live bet here, buddy? Vaughn, are you back in Connecticut? Oh,
no, I'm in Boston still.
He's in Boston still.
So next year when we're doing the show, it won't be an issue because Boston will be legal by then. But
yeah. All good. Let's move on to the next one. And before we get to the next one, guys, you can still ask your questions on here. We're still going to answer them. And we're going to try to get kind of stop 10 minutes early because I know Eric's got a lot of props for this show. So he can just run through all of them and give them all out. But let's move over to North Carolina State at North Carolina. North Carolina, 6.5 point favorite. 56 is the total. Let's go, Vaughn. Give me what you got.
Well, I mean, I want you guys to talk me into a Drake May prop today. That's certainly where my mind has been at. But to be honest with you guys, I've been watching this North Carolina State team. I know Eric and I were texting about them a couple of weeks ago when they had their backup quarterback in, and we were like, this offense is atrocious. They are a bottom feeder with these backups right now, but now they get a matchup against a rival, an in-state rival, and also a defense that, I mean, I'm not saying we could be out there playing for them, but give us some time, and we might be a secondary starter for the North Carolina Tar Heels defense. This team has been – the only downfall of the Tar Heels has been their defense all season, and that's how teams stay with them. So when I look at this game, I look at a North Carolina State team total over 24.5. They scored 20-21 their last game. You saw them kind of get it going there in the second and third quarter before they got stopped dead in their tracks in the fourth. I'm looking at the Wolfpack. They may not cover. They may not win. But what they can do is score 3 touchdowns on North Carolina's defense. And if they get 3 touchdowns, I like the chance that they can surpass 24. So give me the probably the most unattractive underdog of the day, and I'll take their team total over on North Carolina State.
Wow, I love it, Vaughn. I love your methodology here because as we saw, look, if you told me last week that Georgia Tech was going to go and be hanging a crooked number like that on UNC and beating them, look, I know their defense is bad, but I didn't expect Georgia Tech to be able to roll them up.
It's bad.
That is
the game bad. Every game bad.
That's a problem. That's a real problem here, And I mean, they had a 2% post-game win expectancy. Take a drink. There it is. Again.
There it is.
And it's not just that for Georgia Tech. They had a 28% post-game win expectancy the week before against Wake. So you got 2 weeks in a row that UNC has put up a couple of stinkers. That's great that I love that they play with the 16th fastest pace in the country. Give me that offense. I'm in. But defensively, let's not forget, again, 122nd overall, 118th against the pass. Dangerous. But NC State does have Ben Finley. Jack returned to the 36 chambers last week.
Yeah.
They returned to the 36 chambers. They quickly exited the 36 chambers. In comes Ben Finley after about a half dozen passes from Jack Chambers. What was obvious to us 6 weeks ago when we absolutely annihilated his under finally became obvious to Dave Doran, head coach of NC State. So you got Ben Finley under center there. That is a concern, Vaughn. I am a little, that makes me a little nervous.
I mean, he's not great, but
I do want to see them moving the ball.
Yes.
Because like you said, Drake May, he's a 313.5. I cannot, even after last week, I still can't take a Drake May under. I just can't bring myself to do it.
Not at all.
It's just he's been so great this year. He's been a pleasure to watch.
You know what this?
Yeah.
Go ahead.
I'll say this too. Like, today's a big day for teams that are playing in conference championships next week. A look ahead spots. What are they playing for? North Carolina's in a spot where what are they essentially playing for when they're already in their conference championship against Clemson, getting ready for a neutral site game? Could be a bit of an overlook here. People will say North Carolina is much better than NC State, and I don't think any three of us will disagree with that. But it's a big look ahead spot here. And just the last factor I'll say is Miami, terrible offense, scored 24 on them. Virginia scored 28 on them. Pitt scored 24 on them. I think North Carolina State can get it done, even though the quarterback play is scary, Eric. Very scary.
Absolutely. And that's not to say, for myself that I want to take the under on Drake May, but it's like you got to look at how these games have gone and what's happened when they've played kind of better defenses. And we know that NC State is a legit D.
Yeah.
Last week when they played Georgia Tech, May only threw 30 passes. Like, Georgia Tech controlled the ball. They didn't have really a chance to. They did a great job jumping passing lanes too. He only had 202 yards. Virginia, another team that has really played a lot slower this year, 279. They played Miami. He went under there at 309. He only threw 28 passes. Notre Dame 297, Georgia State 278, Florida A&M 294. So it's not like he's just willy-nilly going over 313 yards every game. You know what I mean? So that's kind of the caution I have here, again, against a better defense in a rivalry game. So the thing I do like, the play that I'm all over on this game, Josh Downs. DraftKings just put him out this morning. All right. They didn't have him out there all week. I just saw him dropped in the AM, and I got really excited because I took it. He's at 84.5 receiving yards. Okay. This is a very, very reactionary line. Last week, 3 catches on 5 targets. Again, the game script was absolutely terrible against Georgia Tech last week. It was just, you got to throw that out. It's not every game. You only got 5 targets last week. Okay, we're gonna run through the previous 4 games for Downs, target-wise. Caught 11 of 12 against Wake, 15 of 15 against Virginia, 11 of 16 against Pitt, excellent pass D, 9 of 11 against Duke. He's gone over 100 yards in all of those games. Okay, this is a rivalry week game. Are they a good team? Yes. But UNC versus NC State, they're going to pull out all the stops to want to win this contest.
Yes.
They're going to be throwing the ball to Josh Downs. If he doesn't get 10 targets, I'm going to be absolutely shocked in this game. I don't see the repeat of Georgia Tech. I think it's reactionary. If last week, if you would put Josh Downs out at 84.5 yards, everybody around the country would have fainted and immediately run to get it. Don't make that mistake. I'm going 84.5 over again.
I like it. Yeah, this game kind of reminds me of Wake Forest versus Clemson last year, right? Where Hartman's throwing the ball over the lot, and they thought, they were going to best this better defense. I mean, the better defense that they're playing against. That's what North Carolina State's kind of in that position that a Clemson is, where they have a really good defense despite not having the season that they wanted to. So I do lead North Carolina State here in this game. Let's move over to Arkansas at Missouri. Arkansas 3-point favorite. Total set at 56. Man, for me, this is a strong lead, but Missouri +3. And I hate betting against KJ Jefferson and Pittman out there. Pittman's such a great coach. He motivates. He gets players ready to rock and roll. But this Missouri team has been slept on all season. Missouri has the 28th ranked defense against a pretty good offense. I think this game is going to have to be won on the ground by Arkansas. But I just don't know, what Arkansas is really playing for here. They're bowl eligible. You know what? They're going to get a better bowl. Who really cares? But Missouri, they have their season on the line here. They win this game. They're in a bowl game. Motivation in this week against your rival. It's still a new rivalry here, but it's still a rivalry nonetheless. Is going to be high for Missouri. So give me Missouri +3. Do you have any props for this game, Eric?
I always got a little something to look at, as always. In terms of movement-wise, one in particular I wanted to point out, Barrett Bannister, wide receiver for Missouri, has been frankly emerged over the past 3 games to be quite a factor. He opened at FanDuel on 58.5 receiving yards, which I immediately took the under because even though it's been recent, they're also playing Arkansas. they're not a great passing team.
Yeah.
And with the kind of inconsistency we see from Connor Cook, I didn't feel comfortable with it. That being said, Bannister also got banged up last week at the end of last game. And that's something that I didn't think was factored into what we have here on these lines. He's still out there at 46.5 on FanDuel. Again, open at 58.5. I still think that's okay because when you get a wide receiver, first off, wide receiver over years, there's a lot of variance. So unless they're real superstars or it's a extremely advantageous line, I tend to lean under just because of we don't know. You don't know. You can give a running back, you're going to give him the ball 20, 25 times. You're going to give it to him. Wide receivers can be schemed out. So I still like the 46.5 because he's banged up. Went out at the end of last game. I don't think the books have kind of caught on to that yet. He's still listed. Typically, when you see guys who have been banged up and they got hurt after they've left the previous game, even with inconsistent performance, they're typically not listed. I'm going to take that. I think in worst case scenario, you get a non-play. Yeah. If he gets out there and he's just amazing and he clears the 47 mark, okay, I can accept that. But that's something that I am playing. Also, for Arkansas on their side, we know that Jefferson's been a little bit banged up. Missouri, as we've talked about on this show here, has an improved defense.
Yes,
certainly. Their pass defense has been great. They did have like a little slip up a couple games ago, but they've been really good. You have a banged up KJ Jefferson, who again I do like in terms of his quarterback acumen. But you have Jaden Hazelwood and Matt Landers out there still listed. I don't know how much. I think we're going to get the Raheem Sanders show this week.
I do too.
And he ran for 232 last week. Looked amazing against Ole Miss. 3 touchdowns. I mean, absolutely dominated. He's gone over 100 yards in all but 3 games this season. He's played in 10. And when he goes over, I mean, he goes over. He hits home runs, 171 Auburn, 175 BYU, 156 South Carolina. Like, he is the engine of this offense. And frankly, I think he's probably the number 1 running back from the 2024 class. I think he's probably surpassed Trevion Henderson, who hasn't shown the physicality, the ability to stay healthy, even though he is fluid and smooth. So 108.5 rush yards on DraftKings. They're a little low. It is actually plus money to take the over. All right. That's been pretty rare with Raheem Sanders this year, especially coming off at 232. It is 114.5 on FanDuel. I'm grabbing the line value. Always shop your lines. 108.5 over Raheem Sanders.
Love it. Love it. Vaughn, you have any thoughts on this one?
Always shop your lines. But Brad, we might have to collab on Missouri +3 because as you know, there's only one way to approach betting Missouri when they're underdogs, and that's you take them as the home dog.
Yes.
6-2 ATS since 2020 as a home dog, 4-4 on the money line. They covered every single time this year as a home dog. And you look at the road dog record, totally flips the script. 1-10 on the money line, 4-7 ATS. And they got mollywopped the last time they were the road underdog playing Tennessee. So I like Missouri here as a home dog. They're actually +3.5 on DraftKings right now. So, everyone, the public, I believe, is going to play Arkansas because they see this and like Arkansas is definitely better than Missouri. But Missouri is a sleeper team the past couple of weeks. They have played a lot better football. So, I would take Missouri +3.5 as well.
Let's collab this. I'm going to go ahead and post this on social, lock my bet in. Let's collab it. I love it. I love it. I love when our collabs are so fire, man. Oh, my God.
Who doesn't want to bet Missouri Tigers? Like,
I know, right? Especially with something on the line. Like, come on. Motivation's going to play huge in this. Let's go to Nebraska at Iowa. Iowa, 10.5-point favorite. Total set at 38.5. Vaughn has a little trick about his unders in 38. Tell me what you like in this game, Vaughn.
Oh, how'd you know? Yeah, we're looking at the under, of course, because as I keep saying on this show all season long, when there's a total of 40 or less, the under is the play in college football. It hits at a 64 to 65% hit rate. This year it's been that way. Last year's this way. Counting back the past 2 seasons, the non-COVID seasons, so 2021 and 2022, it's 20, 11, and 1 to the under, which is 64.5%, up 7.5 units. And this year, it has performed very well as well. We have one more coming up here when you guys know the Air Force or the military, Army versus Navy is coming up. But the under is 13, 8, and 1 this year at 40 or under. And Iowa, as much as their offense has looked better the past couple of weeks, Nebraska's offense might look much, much worse than they were to begin this season. So I do think Iowa could cover this, but I'd be more comfortable laying an under 38.5 or fading Nebraska's team total.
I like fading it. Go ahead, Eric.
Yeah, this game has been a roller coaster since it's open on Sunday. Oh, excuse me, it's Saturday. All right, so this is another one of those examples of FanDuel putting lines out super early in order to be first to the market, and bettors being able to profit off it. So this game opened at -3 at 7:07 p.m. on Saturday evening on FanDuel.
-3.
-3. Listen,
So
it
disrespectful.
happened.
That makes Nebraska the play now, though.
Woo! God, no, I'm saying it opened at -3
Yeah.
there and proceeded to go up 7 points. So opened at Saturday night. It's at 7.5 by the end of the night, ticking up. And by the time 1:33 p.m. rolled around on Sunday, which is when most of the other books are putting out their lines around that time, it's already up to 10.5 points on FanDuel. A full 7 points plus the hook differential where it was lined. When it comes to what you're talking about, I love where Vaughn's going with this on the under, because it also opened up at 40.5 over under, immediately ticked down to 38. And the reason why is, dude, this is Iowa. Iowa's got the number one ranked defense in the country, performance wise. And if you look at how they've done in their Big Ten conference games, besides their games against Michigan and Ohio State, they have allowed 13 points or less in their other 7 games. They've been absolutely dominant. Like, they feast on the lower rung teams of this Big Ten. You just can't move the ball against them. All right. And that's a problem, because we're talking about a Nebraska team that obviously we know everything that's happened with Scott Frost. It's been a complete dumpster fire this year. They just want to move on. Casey Thompson was hurt for a few weeks. Now he's back. Still, even last week, he looked terrible. Terrible last week.
Terrible.
And that was, and they almost won. It was a 14-15 loss to Wisconsin. All right. But they've lost 5 games in a row. The only game they even had a chance in that 5 games was against Northwestern. That was, the first game of the year against Northwestern. They even lost. That was the best win expectancy they've had in any of those losses all season, is what I'm getting at. Right.
Yeah.
So speaking to Vaughn's point about the under, these two teams this season are each 8-3 to the under, a combined 16-6. Does that not tell you what we're getting ourselves into here? Okay. In terms of the props, I can't believe that DraftKings had the audacity to hang Casey Thompson at 10.5 rushing yards. Okay. This is a gift. This is Thanksgiving. It's usually Christmas when we're exchanging gifts. No. Black Friday isn't buying for gifts either. It's for getting gifts as well. Okay.
Yes, it is.
So, Mr. Thompson, I just can't possibly see this being this happening. All right. Yeah. Last week he had 2 rushes. He broke one off. He had 52 yards. Okay. For actual rushing attempts. But what we're not factoring in sacks. Okay. In college, when you get sacked, that sack yardage comes off of your rushing total. That is something that is not the case in the NFL. All right. You get sacked. It like evaporates. I don't know freaking why, but that's just how it is. All right. So last game, fine. 33 yards Casey Thompson gained. Okay. Last game. That's a great job against Wisconsin. We're very proud of him. Dating back from then, 10 yards against Illinois. That's a cover. -1 against Purdue. 4 sacks. Rutgers, 3 yards. Indiana, -32, 3 sacks. Oklahoma, -30, 4 sacks. You're seeing the trend here, all right? He's only covered that 10-yard rushing mark twice all season, and he's been banged up. And he's playing at Iowa.
Yeah.
Nope. Give me that under 10.5 rushing yards on Casey Thompson. That should not be listed. DraftKings put it out. Make them pay.
Still 10.5 for me. It's still 10.5 for me. I'm going to play it.
That's a great play. And I'll say this too, like the last thing I'll say about the under, Spencer Petras is playing his best football of the season.
He has been a pain, hasn't he?
And they still can't score. I mean, 24-3, 24-10, and 13-10. And Spencer Petras has been lighting folks up with 40, 50-yard bombs. And his total's still 171.5. and Casey's is 177.5, which is very interesting. But I like both
like that.
numbers.
Yeah, I actually lean Iowa here. The reason I didn't make an official play was because when it came time for me to start writing and doing my official plays, it was at 7, and I don't want to get behind 3.5 extra points. But you are playing one of the worst offenses versus one of the best defenses in the country. Number 12 in success rate on defense, number 2 in defensive DVOA against somewhere around 115, 93, and 63, and all 3 offensive metrics for Nebraska. So short and sweet here. I do like Nebraska. I do like Iowa, and I do lean the under here because it's going to be hard for me to see Nebraska scoring more than 10 points in this game.
Yeah, absolutely. And keep in mind, too, what they do well is they pass. They don't run the ball. They're 90th in terms of overall rushing performance. Yeah. They can't do it. And they're going up against Iowa. You're gonna force Casey Thompson to put the ball in the air against Riley Moss and company, and that ball-hawking, number 1 rated pass defense. Okay, good luck.
Yeah. Let's move over to UCLA, minus 11 at California. 61 is the total. I will give my play quick. A UCLA for me minus 10 is what I wrote in my article. So if you guys are not following, go to www.NBCSportsEdge.com for our college football articles. Listen, UCLA here, I just don't see Cal, keeping up with UCLA. Cal is averaging 29 points per game. They're 63rd in the nation in defensive FEI, and their biggest problem is third down success rate. They can't get off the field. So you have a team who's coming off an emotional loss who really just wants to end their season on a strong high note because there's a pretty good chance that a lot of these players don't play in that bowl game. And so they want to, push the tempo. They want to score a ton. They're averaging 39.5 points per game. DTR and Charbonnet have been absolutely phenomenal for me. This is a lopsided affair. Give me UCLA. I'll play it up to the 11 if you want. My official play is actually on the minus 10. Anybody got any thoughts on this game?
Yeah, I mean, I like that look. I definitely think people will be quick to bet UCLA today, which could be a little scary with Cal having the home finale. But as someone, like I said last week, we need UCLA to beat USC for that win total over. If you have a win total future on UCLA over 8.5 wins, they have 8 wins right now.
Yes.
Of course, we need them to win today, but Cal is priced at plus 360 on the money line. That is a perfect hedge opportunity right now if you want to hedge out. And no matter what, you win money on UCLA's win total. So that's all I'm approaching this game. I'm not going to play the game officially, but I did play Cal's money line just in case UCLA does get upset and I don't lose a 2-unit future.
Yeah, that feature is nice. I also forgot to say that we are 1 Iowa win away from cashing a plus money win total. I don't think at any point in the season I was comfortable with the win total, but we are 1 win away from cashing that. Eric, do you want to prop this game?
Yeah, and you look at Cal and how they've performed, and they got 4 wins, and it hasn't been an impressive set of wins. They've kind of trotted up there, the victories. Let's start with FCS, UC Davis, week 1, UNLV, Arizona. We talked about their defense. And then last week against Stanford, they pulled it out with a 10% post-game win expectancy. Again, there you go. Take a drink. I watched that game. It was absolutely terrible to watch. I'm sorry for anybody who was subjected to that. And then when you're looking at what they do on defense, this is a Justin Wilcox coach team. Okay, offensively, they're not very good. They're pretty much forced to rely on a freshman. Their 2 best players are freshmen: J. Michael Sertivan, wide receiver, running back Jaden Ott, who we talked about last week. But when it comes to Cal, it's just a case where they're slow. Their offense is not particularly efficient, nor is their defense. Like, they have a 38% success rate on offense, 112, 48.5% success rate on defense, 125th, that's 6th worst in the country. I just think it's a case where UCLA is going to be able to impose their will. Sure, they wanted to beat USC, obviously. But this is still Cal, all right? This is still a rivalry game. This is still a Pac-12. It's right up the highway, up to 5. The terrible blocking and coverage, Cal. I just think it's a case where Charbonnet opened up at 104.5 rushing yards on FanDuel. That is an incredibly low line for what we have seen him doing on a weekly basis. I mean, in terms of, running backs and their performance and how they've done this year, I mean, it's pretty much Charbonnet deserves to be in that Blake Corum conversation, in my opinion. And just because he went for 95 yards against USC because they had to throw a little bit more, he only ran 19 times, where every other game he's had all season long, pretty much, that's been really competitive, he's had 20. So before that, right? So we'll go Arizona, 181, 195, 154, 198, 124. Every game before his USC one. Now we're playing Cal. Yeah. Who, again, doesn't have much to play for. Has had all their wins have been against terrible teams, and they haven't even played that well. They probably should have lost about the last 7 in a row.
Yep, I agree there.
122.5. I took it at 104.5 on FanDuel with Charbonnet as soon as it came out. Had a heart attack and jumped on it. It immediately, as soon as I hit the send button, went up to 114. We're now hanging it at 122. I believe it's actually a little less. I think it's a 116 on FanDuel. So that's where I'm going, over 116.5. Zach Charbonnet.
Let's get after it. So Florida at Florida State. Florida State is a 10-point favorite. Total set at 58. Before Vaughn gets into his pick, I will say the great Will Gray. I texted him. He's a Gator. I said, man, I almost put money on your boys. And I quote, he said, man, we are a mess. Vaughn, what are you playing in this game?
Yeah, they are a mess. Florida State has been phenomenal this season. I mean, they're 4-0 ATS and 4-0 on the money line their last 4, 8-3 ATS on the year. Oddly enough, their 3 non-covers have all came at home this year. So they're 3-3 ATS at home, which is very interesting. 4-0 on the road, 1-0 on a neutral. But when I looked at this series and the history of these two teams, when Florida State is the home team in the series and they're the favorite, the under is 6-1 in those 7 games, and the average combined score has been 43.3 points per game. We just saw Anthony Richardson of the Florida Gators throw for 400 yards on Vanderbilt and lose 31-24. I'm looking at a terrible Vanderbilt defense. It was 118th and 125th. Florida couldn't even beat that, and now they take on Florida State. I see people running quick to the window on the Florida Gators today, but they've already secured the bowl eligibility. They beat Florida State 3 straight times. This is the best Seminoles team we've had in a couple of years now. I see a little revenge, a pal narrative here where the Seminoles lay the wood on the Gators. So I took Florida State minus 9.5. Of course, I would play it up to 10.
Let's get it. Let's move over to the next game. New Mexico at Colorado State. Colorado State, a 7.5-point favorite. Total set at 36. Oh, I feel like I already know which way you're leaning here, Vaughn. What's your bet in this game?
Yeah, the total, you're seeing 35s and 36 everywhere. Short and sweet. Under. I got the under 36.5, so I definitely like it down to 35. Again, it's just the narrative playing into the under 40 trend in college football. Next year when we have this show, every single total that appears at 40 or lower, we're betting the under. That's how successful it's been every season. So we're playing this one too.
Yeah, great call. And each of these teams are under machines as well. New Mexico, last 11 road games, 9-2 to the under. Colorado State, and just their last 22 games, period, 16-6 the under. That's a 73% hit rate. These are 2 terrible offenses. A first-year coach in Jay Norvell coming over from Nevada to Colorado State. He's been changing over this entire offense. The defense has actually been pretty good for Colorado State, which is not what you expect from an air raid offense with Matt Mumme, Hal Mumme, the intellectual, originator of the air raid, running the show. But here we are. So great call, Vaughn. All over that under.
Great call. Yeah, I mean, the under 40s are just like automatic. I have no thoughts, no doubts about that. Let's move over to Utah State at Boise State. We'll cover this game before we get into our recap. So Boise State is a 17-point favorite. 51.5 is the total. Vaughn, what you like and why?
Oh, guys. We know who I love. It's the Boise State Broncos, but this is a Utah State spot. I'm not going to lie. Boise State's already got the bag secured for their bowl eligibility. They already got the bag secured for the Mountain West Championship. They are not playing for anything today at a noon kickoff on Eastern time. This is a terrible spot to be backing West Coast teams, in my opinion. And Utah State has been streaking the past few weeks. Quarterback play has been a lot better. Defense has been a lot better. And they've been ATS monsters the past 4. So I love you, Boise State. I picked you to win the MWC. Do it next week. But today, you're not going to cover. I like the Aggies plus 17.
I'm right there with you, frankly. If you look at Utah State's last 8 games, they've been pretty good. They had a tough start to the season, but they've won their last 3. In the losses that they've taken, 5 of the last 6, in fact. But the losses they've taken, BYU, that was 12. That's a BYU team. I can forgive them for that. And that was all the way back in September. So, that was a long time ago. But all those games, even the ones they lost to Wyoming. Again, they lost to BYU. Those were within this 17-point margin.
Yeah.
And they had a nice win last week against San Jose State, 35-31. That's a tough team. And then on the other side, Boise State, like you said, you make a great point, Vaughn. They're in the Mountain West Conference Championship game against Fresno State. That's happening. It's locked, signed, sealed,
locked and loaded.
It's in. You saw what happened last week against Wyoming. Andrew Peasley, Wyoming's starting quarterback, injured.
Yep.
20-17. They managed to outlast the Cowboys. That's it. They won by 3 points. They smoked Nevada, who's the worst team in the Mountain West the week before. But then against BYU beat them 31-28. So, and then against Air Force, 19-14. So they're not out there this past month out there crushing teams. You know what I mean? So yeah. I think with Utah State, obviously having the Anderson head coach, Gary Anderson, excuse me, not Gary Anderson, the other Anderson, fine. They're going to be able to score some points. I think they stay within 17, pretty easily. What is it at 15.5 right now? Is where it ended up.
16.5 popping up
16.5.
on
Okay,
right
so
now,
crawled under 7.
Definitely
17.
moving.
I still
also,
like
we're not doing official money line sprinkles until tomorrow, but I mean, I'm not going to lie when I said I sprinkled Cal and Utah State at plus 600 and Cal was plus 310. So
yeah,
meat sweats today, baby.
It's motivation spots. It's all about motivation.
Let's go through these official plays. I'll start with mine first. So we got Baylor plus 9. We got Missouri plus 3, collab with my boy V Money right there. UCLA minus 10. And then I parlayed Delora 250 and Charbonnet over 100 minus 110. Go ahead, Vaughn. Give me yours.
All right. We are rolling with the Tulane Green Wave, baby, to get that outright win. I got them plus 1, but I like that money line as well. We're taking that Iowa, Nebraska under, the New Mexico under, Missouri with my boy Brad. Arizona versus Arizona State, 2 terrible defenses going over 65.5. We're going to lay the 9.5 with Florida State as well. And then my least favorite bet of the day, but it's going to be the greatest sweat of the day, is North Carolina State team total over 24.5 at North Carolina. So we got an array of spreads, unders, team totals, and overs today. It's a great day to be betting college football on Black Friday.
Absolutely. I go with Evan Prater, under 192.5 passing yards. Also, I will say this, on Prize Picks, I had seen Charles McClellan, their running back, at 60, I believe it was 60.5 rushing yards earlier in the week. I don't know if that's moved. If that is still up, I would take that. It doesn't have it on any of the domestic books, though. So, pair that up on Prize Picks. Ben Sims, tight end Baylor, is at 28.5 on FanDuel. He's at 25.5 on DraftKings. You're going to want to go to FanDuel for that under. Arizona State, as we discussed, Jaden Delora opened up to 235.5, went up to 250.5, is now at 282.5 on FanDuel. That's the one you want to grab on the over. 298.5 on DraftKings. NC State, North Carolina, we're going to go with Josh Downs, over 84.5 receiving yards. He's cleared that 5 of the last 6 weeks. He's gone over 100 5 of the past 6 weeks. We're going to go with Rocket Sanders, 108.5 rushing yards over. Again, that's 114.5 on FanDuel. That's 108.5 on DraftKings. Casey Thompson, under 10.5 rushing yards. That is on DraftKings. As discussed, I also kind of like his 177.5 under passing yardage since good luck. And then lastly, Zach Charbonnet will be going with over 108.5 rushing yards.
Nice. I love it, guys. Listen, when Eric came to us and said, we absolutely have to do a Friday special, my eyes lit up, my heart lit up, because we get to talk to you guys about the thing we love the most, and that's college football. Everyone, I hope you had a great Thanksgiving. And for Vaughn Dalzell and Eric Froton, I'm Brad Thomas. Take care. See you guys tomorrow, 11 a.m. Eastern, sharp.